My name is Houston Singletary. I work for Ableton as a clinician, a trainer, also do sound design. And I want to welcome you to the Ableton Live Clinic.
Ableton Vocoder.
Let's stop right there and let's back up and deconstruct and then recreate everything one more time. It's a lot to absorb. We've got our carrier source on the MIDI track, which is our operator synth, playing this brassy preset called Brass Brzezinski. Okay, but I'm going to keep that muted because I don't necessarily need to hear that sound. I just need the signal, and that signal is being routed into track 1 into the sidechain input of Vocoder. Audio from chooser window number 2 Brass Brzezinski, which is the MIDI track 2. So when I play a note, for example middle C,
We can see the signal, and when I talk, I'm modulating the vocode input with a carrier signal from the MIDI track.
so I can move up and down the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So I can keep my voice the same.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
So I can change the pitch by using my keyboard input from the MIDI track and use my voice to accent and use that as the modulator, therefore giving me that vocoder style sound. Another tip that I want to show you is let's go ahead and enhance this signal and enhance this overall audio effect of the vocoder by using the classic compressor in Ableton Live. Let's go back up to our device browser. We'll go to Audio Effects, go to Compressor. I'm going to drag Compressor right in front of the vocoder down here in the device view. Now when I play 1, 2, let me go ahead and accent the threshold a little bit.
1, 2,
Increase my output stage. Now we have a nice bright signal, so now I can play some really tight keyboard styles and also use my voice to get a nice crisp signal like this.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ableton Vocoder. And that's how we get that sound in Vocoder.
So as you can see with Compressor, we're just amplifying and compressing that audio signal coming in on track 1, which happens to be my voice. So the signal can get stronger and a little crisper and a little more exacting. And we can take it a step further too and put a compressor or limiter on the back side of Vocoder and just make that device chain really, really tight and really good sounding. So let's go ahead and close the browser up. Close our I/O up, and as a matter of fact, let's just review the I/O for 1 second. On track 1, I'm going to rename that Vocoder, and track 2, we've got our carrier brass. We'll just call it that. Okay, so back here on our I/O section on our Vocoder track, we got external selected. Okay, and use my interface, and I'm going to select input number 1 on my interface, which is my microphone, for a nice mono signal. And I'm monitoring right now with my selection set to input. So I've got a constant input selection and monitoring that vocal signal coming in. Right now it's coming into the compressor and the vocoder. It's not necessarily showing up on the fader until I send that MIDI signal.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
Something else to keep in mind is on the vocoder itself. So we're bringing this audio in from our MIDI track. Go ahead and select this sub-chooser window to pre-effects. That'll keep things nice and tight, less confusing as you start working with the vocoder. Okay, so now I want to show you how we can record and try to keep things as less complicated as possible. The one thing we do want to do is keep our record enable select on our MIDI track, our carrier track, our brass track, but also now we want to record enable the vocoder track. So you notice when I on the vocoder track, it automatically disengages the record enable on the MIDI track. Well, we can take care of that by holding down our command control key and simply multi-select our record input across both tracks. We'll pop this back into auto up here in our monitor section so we can hear the playback. So now we just want to go ahead and get our metronome. Sounds like a pretty good tempo there. We'll just work with 110. And we're going to go over here and we're going to launch with our scene launch. Something I want to show you with our preferences. And live, we have the ability to record on scene launch. So we'll go to our Record Warp Launch tab. We'll go down to the bottom area under Launch. And we'll select Start Recording on Scene Launch. We want to turn that on. So now we don't have to click and activate each one of these clips individually to record. We can keep everything in sync right over here with our scene launch. So let's give it a shot. We're going to go ahead and record the scene, and we're going to record some MIDI notes. Those MIDI notes are going to act as our carrier signal going into the vocoder, and I'll be making up some vocal lines as well. Keep it kind of basic, but let's just see what we can do. Here we go.
This is the vocoder. I can play octaves or very low stuff, or I can play all kinds of chords.
So let's go ahead and punch out.
This is the vocoder.
So now I've recorded MIDI notes, just the carrier signal, into the vocoder track, and I've also recorded an audio clip of my voice.
This is the vocoder. I can play octaves,
our MIDI clip,
very low stuff,
and our audio clip.
All kinds of chords.
And now this way we can have this loop, and we can go ahead and start working with different parameters inside vocoder. So we take our bands up to 32. We can open the release up just a little bit, accent a couple of these middle bands. We can also work with a format. This shifts the frequencies of the filter bank itself, giving us more of that male or female perspective in the tone. Take it down lower, the negative values for that male sort of format perspective. Work with the depth envelope. This more or less controls how much of the modulator's envelope works alongside the carrier signal. So by default, it sounds pretty good. Really what we want to do is go in and affect some of the frequency ranges right here. There we go. We can bring the initial gain level up. We can select our enhance chooser window on our carrier. Get a little brighter signal there on that input. And we can also switch from precise to retro. Gives a little more metallic sound, a little bit more of that vintage sound. It's kind of cool. So I'm going to take my bands back down to 20. Bring my release down to kind of tighten that up a little bit.
Very low stuff, or I can play all kinds of chords.
So there you go. That's a look at how vocoder works using my vocal as an input modulator and using a MIDI signal coming in from track 2 with this brass preset and operator to achieve that sound.
Ableton Vocoder.
Okay, that's going to do it for this edition of the Live Clinic on Vocoder. I'm Houston Singletary. Keep sending those letters in to liveclinic@ableton.com. Those email letters are important. We check them out, we'll read them all, and hopefully we'll get your request on the next edition of the Ableton Live Clinic. Until then, Houston Singletary. See you later.
Ableton Live Clinic. This is how we do it.